Where the Dallas market is now, where it's headed. Today we're going to talk about both of those things, so stay tuned. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Glad to meet you. My name is Wendy Pinnell. I am a local real estate broker here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you want to know everything there is to know about living in Dallas, or what we're going to talk about today, which is what we're seeing in the market in Dallas, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell. In this video, we're going to go over some numbers and some stats. We're going to talk about what we're seeing in the market right now. Then we're going to talk about where the market is headed. Now, the easiest way for me to do that is to hop on my computer. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start off by talking about what is going on in the Metroplex right now. So what I have right here is I have numbers as of the end of April. And you can see up here 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. So I'm showing you 6 years because I wanted to get you an idea of what the market typically looks like under normal circumstances. So this piece right here, number of active listings, and you can see in 2017, starting here, 25,000, the end of April, right? Then 28,000, jumping up to 34,000. 31,000. Okay, so this is 2020. We're all happily going on in a normal market. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and we see us dropping to 16,000 in 2021. And oh boy, here we are right now in 2022 with 15,771. So compare that to the 25,000 that we historically are used to, right? 28, 34, 31, and then boom, 15. So when we talk about, supply and demand, right there are the numbers, proof in the pudding, right? We are down, goodness, well over half from what we saw in 2019. Now let's take a look at the amount of closed homes in here. Again, 2017, 10,000 and some change, right? Then we move up to 11,000. Then in 2019, we're at 11,000. 2022, right? This is the end of April. So we already had active homes listed. COVID hits, and then we drop down in numbers. Now I want to show you the correlation of what you're going to see right here, which is 2021, we have 16,000 homes listed and almost 12,000 closed. And then here we have, 15,771 listed and 10,000 closed. So compare that to this ratio right here, and you're going to see the difference in buyers having some choices. And then over here, buyers not having choices, right? So you had 10,000, and some change buyers able to choose from 25,000 active homes for sale. You jump over here and you have 10,000 buyers able to choose only from 15,000. So we can see right here, this tells us, these numbers here don't lie, and they tell us, hey, we are in a tough, tight seller's market. Let's see how that is reflected in price, right? 2017 median sales price, 242,000, 250,000, 256,000, 265,000, right? This is all normal rates of appreciation for what you're gonna see in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But then we see COVID, and right in here is where the Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to almost zero, okay? And that's where you begin to see this huge increase in price. It makes sense, right? Because interest rates are so low. So we only have these 2 years here where we're kind of seeing some, unnatural appreciation of properties at a really high pace after really historically seeing them go at a very traditional clip. In fact, let me give you a little bit of a deeper look at that. What I have here is I have 2012 all the way up to 2022, okay? Because I wanted to show you again how the Dallas-Fort Worth market goes up predictably every year, but not in an explosive way. Let me show you the second page, okay? So now we have the 2018. You're gonna see a predictable but stable amount of appreciation up until you get right here. And then, oh my, look at this fast clip. So what I did was I did an average of 2012 all the way up to 2020, and we saw an average of 7.5% growth per year. So when I tell you, hey guys, interest rates going up should get the market back to where it normally should be, we're talking about a 7.5% increase a year. So again, going right here, 150, you can just see that gradual climb, right? And that's really what we've seen in the Dallas-Fort Worth market traditionally, right? Until we get to here. And again, we have that cheap money, lots of buyers moving into the area, and we see these super fast appreciation rates. Now, besides cheap money, low interest rates, right? What is fueling this heavy growth? Well, it is right here. This is macrotrends.net. I've got it set from 2017 to 2022, and this is the growth rate of Dallas. Okay, so we can see 2017, 5,971,000, and then just this steady clip. Even during COVID, it did not slow down. And where we are right now, 6,488,000 in the Dallas area. So between 2017 here and then all the way up to 2022, we have seen a 9% growth rate, okay, in the Dallas area. Now, I've taken you over here to Zillow.com because I wanted to show you what they had to say about home value and sales forecast for April 22. So you can say this is very current, April 20, 2022, and this is what they had to say. Zillow's home value forecast now calls for 14.9% growth through March 2023, down from a year ahead forecast of 16.5% growth made in February. Over the next 3 months, Zillow expects home values to grow 5.5%, down from an expectation for 5.9% growth in the previous month's forecast. So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us the Fed raising interest rates is working, and that is fantastic news, right? This is not indicative of a market crash, okay? When things happened in 2008, it was massive. It was sudden, okay? What this shows us is that it's working. Guys, this is exactly what we want to see. We want to see the market slow down. And again, remember, this is not Dallas, but typically Dallas, and I've looked and would have loved to have found something specific to Dallas, but remember, in a normal market, Dallas appreciates by about 7.5% per year through an average. So I averaged 2012 to 2020 and about 7.5% per year. So now this is obviously nationwide, but still, hey, that is fantastic. Get us back down to where we need to be. All right, kind of continuing on talking about what the market looks like today. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas had their own take on it. They said, real-time market monitoring finds signs of brewing U.S. housing bubble. Let me read to you a paragraph that I thought was particularly interesting. One, it's right here, another U.S. housing bubble brewing. Our evidence points to abnormal U.S. housing market behavior. You think? Well, that is an astute observation there, buddy. While historically low interest rates are a factor, meaning cheap money, they don't fully explain housing market developments. Again, you think? Other drivers have played a role, including pandemic-related U.S. fiscal stimulus programs and COVID-19 related supply chain disruptions. And we talked about that in other videos I've done. So basically right here, you have, you're giving money to buyers, right? Fiscal stimulus. And then over here, and so you're giving money to buyers and you're lowering interest rates. Okay, so which is also the equivalent of giving money to buyers, right? So you're fueling demand. And then you have over here supply chain disruptions, which of course minimizes supply. So, we've said all along this is about supply and demand. And really the Fed agrees as well. We don't want to see houses going up this quickly in value. And the Fed has noticed it too. And that's why they're raising interest rates. They say we've got to slow this down, and they're going to do that through raising interest rates. Okay, let me give you a look at this paragraph as well, because I think it addresses that doomsday thought of the market crashing, okay? Based on present evidence, there is no expectation that fallout from a housing correction would be comparable to the 2007 to 2009 global financial crisis in terms of magnitude or macroeconomic gravity. Okay, now why is that? Well, because household balance sheets are in better shape. They have equity, okay? They have equity in their houses. And excessive borrowing doesn't appear to be fueling the housing market boom. So what have we said about that? That is absolutely true, because we talked about how lending standards have completely become more strict, right? And so excessive borrowing back in 2008, if you had a pulse, you could get a loan, right? So that was excessive borrowing. I agree with what the Fed is saying here, that we do see a market that is growing too fast. And also, hey, Federal Reserve, go ahead and admit your contribution in things, because you did historically low interest rates and you gave the buyers money with fiscal stimulus. And let's go back here. Let's, really dig in and unpack this word historically. And the idea here is that interest rates are not supposed to be that low. They are not supposed to be that low. They historically low. You could use the word artificially low, because you're just not supposed to have interest rates in the 2 and 3% rate. Okay, so far what we know in terms of the market right now, we know that we are appreciating very quickly in value. Supply is really low. Demand is really, really up there. Supply and demand makes sense, right? But where does that tell us about where we're going? Prediction, market-wise, where are we going to be, a year from now? And so to show you that, I wanted to go ahead and read to you this article from Fannie Mae. Okay, so this is actually by Housing Wire, but it's going to talk about what Fannie Mae has said. Okay, so Fannie Mae is going to make some projections and some forecasts. So this is not me making these forecasts. Okay, this is Fannie Mae. Let's see what Fannie Mae has to say. Okay, Fannie Mae has lowered its mortgage origination forecasts for 2022 and 2023 due to the Federal Reserve's aggressive inflation-fighting monetary policy and corresponding volatility in the mortgage market. Now, let me scroll down here, because I think this is really interesting. Data from U.S. economic history suggests that successfully negotiating a soft landing requires money tightening to be preemptive rather than responsive. As such, we've updated our 2023, so we're talking next year, forecast to include a modest recession, but one that we do not expect to be similar in magnitude or duration to the recession of 2008. Okay, so you can see Fannie Mae's prediction is that we're going to see a modest recession. And I really think that this part right here is so important. They need monetary tightening to be preemptive rather than responsive. So the Fed should have responded a long time ago by increasing the interest rates, but instead they let the inflation build and build and build, and now they're having to be responsive. We wanted them to be preemptive. Now we're stuck with them being responsive because the inflation is already so high. Okay, so what is Fannie Mae predicting here? Well, based on U.S. economic history, they're saying, a modest recession is on the way. And again, it's because the Fed was not preemptive rather than responsive. What we should have seen is them raise those rates a long time ago, but instead they waited until inflation was really high, really taking off, and now they're having to be responsive instead. So 2023, okay, includes a modest recession. Now, question, what happens to interest rates during a recession? We'll tell you what, let's take a look. Let's just do a Google on that, okay? What happens to interest rates during a recession? Right here, you see that? Okay, I'm gonna hit enter and let's see what almighty Google has to say. Okay, interest rates usually fall in a recession. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit. Interest rates usually fall early in a recession, and notice that word early, okay? Again, interest rates tend to fall during a recession. Okay, interest rates typically fall during a recession. Interest rate cuts. Okay, so are you getting the idea here that this is not me predicting this? This is across the board, that when we have a recession, interest rates go down. In fact, let's click on that and take a look at one of these. What happens to interest rates during a recession? Well, interest rates tend to fall during a recession as countries' central banks lower rates in an effort to spur borrowing and economic growth. Okay, so recap. What we have seen so far in the market today is that home values are going to continue to go up, especially in the Dallas area, because we just don't have supply. We have continually increasing demand, people moving into the area. We saw that on that curve, but we don't have the supply, and we saw that on that first chart we looked at. Supply is like half of what we would expect this time of year. So where does that leave us? Well, we've got housing prices continuing to go up, right? Because we've got that supply and demand problem. And then we've got interest rates going up as well. So this is just not a pretty picture for home buyers, right? Then Fannie Mae predicts that soft recession. And what happens in a recession? We saw overwhelming consensus that interest rates go down. So when I talked about where the market is right now and where the market is headed, you can see none of that is my opinion. It's based off reputable sources. So housing prices are continuing to go up. We saw that with supply and demand. We saw that even with what Zillow had to say. And interest rates are going up. The Fed has made no secret of that. But we also saw that Fannie Mae is predicting a soft recession. What happens in a recession? Well, we saw by mighty Google and, the consensus of a dozen different articles, they all say that during a recession, interest rates go down. And remember, Fannie Mae is predicting that recession in 2023. Okay, so what are our options then? We can see this is not the prettiest of pictures, but let's talk about some possible options, right? All right, adjustable rate mortgages, let's talk about those. I've checked with some of our top lenders and they all say that these are getting used a little bit more these days, and that makes sense. So an adjustable rate mortgage, what it does is it starts out at a lower interest rate than what the market is offering for fixed rate mortgages, okay? So you need to know that these are two-edged swords because they're going to adjust upward depending on the time frame that you agree to on your mortgage, okay? So they're going to adjust. Now, I said upward and I shouldn't have because that isn't necessarily the case, right? Because we see Fannie Mae heading into a recession. During a recession, rates come down. So an adjustable rate mortgage is an option. Now, why might this be a good idea? Well, obviously you can start at a lower interest rate, and we've also seen that houses are going to continue going up in value, and you can always refinance to a fixed rate mortgage. All right, what's another option? Well, you know what? At the time of closing, you can pay down the interest rate. Usually this doesn't make a huge difference, but you can definitely ask your lender about that. Watch rates. So let's just say you go with an adjustable rate mortgage. Keep an eye on those interest rates, right? Because the Fed is raising rates aggressively right now, but that's gonna trigger a recession. And then what happens in a recession, right? We see interest rates go down. All right, fourth option. Well, consider more affordable areas and homes. Take a closer look at where you're looking to buy because you may be able to find a more affordable area and a more affordable home. And even if it, becomes to where it's not your forever home, again, historically in Dallas, the values are going up. So you'll have equity and be able to sell within a few years. And maybe by then, interest rates have gone down because of the recession. Then you'll be able to get more into your dream home, so to speak. Okay, so in recap, we see that the Fed is going to keep on raising those interest rates. We also see that home values are going to keep going up, right? We saw that there's this incredible imbalance between supply and demand that's going to keep spurring growth in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But we also saw that Fannie Mae is predicting a mild recession. And what happens during recession? Well, rates go down. So really your question is, do you go ahead and buy now, paying a little bit of a higher interest rate, or do you wait until those rates go back down? All the while, home values are going to keep going up. So what are your options? Well, you really might think about the adjustable rate mortgage, right? And then you also have to consider the fact that if you buy now, you can see appreciation of whatever it is that you're buying. So obviously this is a no-brainer. If you're relocating, you have to live somewhere. Definitely go ahead, jump into the market. And even if you end up with a home that's not your dream home, you know what? A year or two from now, you can sell that and take that equity and then buy another home. Okay, so hope this information was helpful. Lots of numbers. Hope I didn't lose you midway through. Anyway, if this information was helpful, hop on over to my channel because I have a lot of other market update videos there, as well as, spotlights on different communities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But listen, in the meantime, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.